It's 2 o'clock. Can you just close the door so we can start the proceedings? I cannot give them.
Meer en meer. Stories wat jou raak en stories wat saak maak.
They've made a mistake in denying me bail, and they've made several other mistakes in many other cases.
The channels that teach us something new or reflect our expression. So it goes beyond switching to the right station. It's about choosing the experience that can adorn the present, dressing it with our tastes as we expand our preferences, because what we are actually connecting to is boundless, limitless human energy. And this is the spirit of NTV.
Hello. Excuse me, can you come in, please? They can't hear me, can they? Apparently, the what's the name? It won't work. Hello, we are starting. What is up? Yes, just close the doors. Really, we have to start. Okay, I hope you guys have a good lunch. Can we have the first presentation for session 3 on the screen? For the benefit of those who are logging in on virtual Facebook streaming, we just want to announce that we're starting with session 3. Session 3 is about the stories from agroforestry practices. We are going to have case studies from 3 different localities. We're going to have Mr. Kik is going to look at the DRC experience, and then Mr. Royd, he is going to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Zambia. And then we have our very own Hiwik, who is going to give us a story in Okakarara. And then after that, this session is actually the longest session. Not only are we going to have the 3 presentations, we are also going to have agroforestry practitioners who are going to give us their testimonials. And this will then end session 3. The panel discussion is going to have its own moderator, and we're going to introduce that part to you once we have finished the 3 input or case studies from different experiences. As you can see, People are still coming, and we cannot wait. In order for me to honor those of you who are on time, we need to start. I apologize on behalf of those who are not here, to the speakers, but I can guarantee you the people who are here are the ones who really wants to hear from you. And therefore, without further ado, I would like to quickly just introduce to you our first speaker, Mr. Kick. Mr. Kick is the Deputy Head of Project within the Hans Seidel Foundation. He initially pursued a career as a professional soldier, but transitioned to the civilian sector, working in the global mobility at Deloitte. Since 2022, he has been implementing different projects for the Hans Seidel Foundation. As a passionate traveler and a nature enthusiast, he is committed to sustainable development. Please help me welcome Mr. Kick, who is going to give us a case study from the DRC. 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to present you today our projects, our agroforestry projects in the DRC. I came here from Kinshasa yesterday, so happy to speak to you today. Just testing this. Yes. So first I will give you a quick introduction to the foundation in the DRC, and then I will introduce the projects Mampu, Ntsio, Mutidwini, and Nzet Agro, our actual agroforestry project, who are all funded by the European Union and partly funded by the Federal Ministry, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. So first, a brief introduction. The DRC office was opened in 1979. We have the same key objectives than the foundation in all over the more than 70 bureaus around the world. So we are promoting democracy, peace, and sustainable development. Our key objectives are democracy and governance. So we do activities in DRC mainly for civic education, awareness raising for civil society. But we are also, and that's quite unique for the foundation because it's, like I said, not our key objective. We're supporting rural communities and their access to land, which is quite difficult in DRC, which I will explain later. And I wanted to give a quick introduction to the agroforestry, but I think this morning we already heard the technical aspects of agroforestry, so I'm going to more focus on the policy side because no project can be successful if not the right policies are implemented. We are having partnerships with local organizations, which is very important because we saw a lot of development projects around the world in the past that were failing because they were not working together with locals who could continue the project after we withdraw. So the first project is called Mampu. Here on the right you can get an idea where it's located. It's still in the province of Kinshasa, which has a lot of benefits for us because the government in Kinshasa is the most organized in DRC and we have them as a contact, so that helps us a lot. The project of Mampu was launched by the HVA, the Hollandse Vennootschap Africa. They had a budget of 12 million euros and they were starting to plant 8,000 hectares of acacias on the Plateau Bateke, together with the Zairian Ministry of Environment, which now became the DRC. So they started the project in 1987. Unfortunately, in 1992, due to the political instability in the country, unfortunately, I didn't bring a picture, but there were a lot of tanks and foreign militaries in the capital, so they had to withdraw from the project, which is kind of a pity because it was one of the largest and is still one of the largest projects that existed in DRC regarding forestry. So the Hans Seidel Foundation finally decided to take over the project in 1995. So nowadays, a lot of people in DRC think that it was the Hans Seidel Foundation who started the project, which is not the case, but we changed the whole we changed the whole approach, which I will explain in the following slide. Mampu by Hans Seidel Foundation. Here you see a quick an overview, a satellite image from 2007 of Mampu. So this area, it's a square. It has 8,000 hectares. We accompanied the project for 14 years, starting in 1995 with a budget. And here I only have the numbers from 2004 until the end. Before it's quite difficult because it was not digitalized. So if anyone is interested in that, I can send you the data later. We invested 5 million euros over those 8,000 acres, and we changed the approach in terms of implicating the local population, because the project initially was designed only as a forestry project. That means planting trees, but managed completely by the HVA. So also our objective is reforestation and sustainable land use by planting acacia trees to prevent soil erosion and produce charcoal. Charcoal, due to the lack of infrastructure in DRC and the lack of alternatives, is still the main product to use to cook by the local population. So the outcomes with Mampu, we cover 10% of Kinshasa's charcoal demand, which is quite huge. Later you will see that our next project covered less, but that's due to the to the rise of the population. So the population got way bigger. So yes. Here you can see a map of Mampu, how it was designed. Good thing back then was that not all of the land, unlike now, was sold. So we could get a quite nice square, which is easier to manage than what I will show you afterwards. Implication of the population, what means that? We were searching for families who were interested in learning about forestry to manage their own land. Next slide. So we chose 300 families to work with us. That was the new approach, because like I said before, it was just a forestry plantation without implicating the population, and every project can just be successful if the population is included. So even while building the house, of course we had experts, but the families themselves were helping to build their houses, which makes it way more valuable, because all of us, we know that if you put hard work into something, you're going to value it way more than if someone gives it to you for free. This on the right is an example of the houses, and later on we also added solar panels. Here is a picture from 2009 of Mampu. There we rented an airplane. Unluckily, I was not there, but here you can see quite well the height of the trees and the shape. And here is an example of how the houses, how the farms were built. But that was not in 2009, that was before. Later on, you're going to see that this area here is planted with crops and fruit trees. So in Mampu, of course, we needed a local partner to help us in training the families that we chose to run this project. And this partner is Kadim, the Centre d'appui au développement intégral Mbankana, so a training center for the development. And their old president must be here in the room, Prof. Taba, from whom you're going to hear afterwards. So he will get a bit more into detail about his organization. Here the main production of Mampu, you can see the main nursery outside, because in Congo, due to the climate that we have, you can plant almost everything outside greenhouses. Here you can see cattle farming, the traditional charcoal ovens, which are quite inefficient, but still the local population needed them. I will get back to that later. Once the acacias were growing, we were also starting to produce honey, which was quite a challenge at that time, because also due to logistics, still now you have to import the clothing, and yes, without that it's getting quite hard. Then we were doing boreholes to make sure that there is enough water for the plantations and for the family, for their private use. And this here I want to come back to the construction of the houses. We even fabricated our own piles back then in Mampu. So we tried to not import too much, because then if something breaks, if something gets damaged, we need to give the population the possibility to repair it themselves. So here you see the production of piles for the roofs. We also had our own garage, which means if a tractor did need maintenance, we could do all that on site. Here are some of the productions from some of the results. So the charcoal was, even though it was produced with local techniques, was quite good quality, huge pieces of charcoal. And like I mentioned before, we were able to cover 10% of the requirements of the population in Kinshasa and the capital. Okay. Here you can see maize. Maize is also one of the main goods that we were producing, and of course manioc, or cassava, I think it's called in English. If you have 300 families on site, which means that in total with husband, wife and children, you were having 5,000 people living on Mampu. So that means that you need first someone who organizes everything, who takes, who does the management on site. And Kadim helped us to build an organization. Oops, I'm sorry. To build an organization, UFAM, the Union of the Agroforestry Farmers of Mampu, which was running the site basically also when we withdrew in 2009. We built or rehabilitated schools, primary and secondary school, so we could maintain a good level of education also for the children and giving them a perspective. And of course a hospital is needed, because the infrastructure was not good at that time, and for example women giving birth, they cannot travel to Kinshasa when there is an urgency. Next project is Ntsio. I'm trying to be a little bit quicker so my mic doesn't get muted. Ntsio is our own first big project on the Plateau Bateke. I'm going to show you where it's localized in one of the slides to come. It's a project with a duration of 7 years. The project started 2012 with almost 10 million euros. The location is on the Plateau Bateke, like Mampu. If you remember, it's northeast of Kinshasa, with a site of 5,500 acres, which is also quite large. And we had 260 local families, or we still have 260 local families on site who are running their farms. So the initiator, like on the previous projects, is the Ministry of Environment of the DRC, in collaboration with the European Union, who were mainly funding the project, and the Hans Seidel Foundation. The objective is to promote food and energy security through sustainable agroforestry, reforestation like Mampu, and community development. Community development is especially important because we also, that's one of our main missions, good governance. So we're trying to do that in our projects to give a good example in general. So we reforested 4,000 hectares with acacia. The rest of the 1,500, we see a natural reforestation, a natural, how do you say, recovery of the savanna land on the Plateau Bateke. And with this project, we were able to cover 1.5 of the charcoal demand for Kinshasa. If we would have this project back in the time, I guess we would have also 10%, but due to the population growth, we would have needed to have a way bigger site to get to that 10%. And we established local governance structures and associations for long-term project sustainability. I will also come to the learning effects from Mampu to the other projects later. Mutidwini was a follow-up project. Why I'm introducing this now, because I will present both projects in one due to the lack of time that I have now. The follow-up project was a duration of 3 years. The project started 2019 with 2.5 million euros budget. Same area, 5,500 acres with the 260 local families. Same initiator, Hans Seidel Foundation with the European Union. And the objective was, we were seeing that the farmers were not yet ready to be self-sustainable, because I mean that's quite a large size and quite a lot of little projects that we had in our project. So we tried to enhance resilience to climate change through diversified agroforestry and promote sustainable agricultural practices. There we're also talking about seeds, because of course we're bringing seeds in who are imported, because in Congo itself you find very rarely the seeds you need or good quality. So we had to make sure that the farmers could guarantee the follow-up on their production. So the Ntsio and Mutidwini perimeter, you see here, that's the site of Mampu. I don't know if we can lower the light a little bit. You can see here the square of Mampu, and here is one of the main national roads. And Ntsio was designed to be here on this edge alongside the river, the Kwango River. Why it has such a shape? It's not because we like to drive long ways to visit our project. It's because all the rest of the land was sold, and we had to negotiate with the government and the local chiefs which land we could use for the purpose of our project. We will have a quick look on all the points on the site, which I will not read out loud now because I only have 5 minutes left. The objective of Ntsio is to develop diversified agroforestry on a 6,000 hectare size. 6,000, why? Because we have 2 borehole sites which are not planted, with 260 farms managed by members of an organized community. I will get back to that community point in another slide. We want to increase the supply of food products and energy wood in the capital's market. So the basic sense is not to use it for their own life, of course, for their own family, but produce enough to make a business out of it. The structure of Ntsio is basically you have 4 farms here next to each other, so you can help each other out in case of need. Then you have 15 hectares of acacia forest, which are planted in rows, and we have a cycle of 7 years. After 7 years, you cut 1 row and you plant the next one. And to be sure that the farmers have an income in those 7 years, waiting for the trees to be ready, we have 3, here it says 2, I think in reality it's 3 hectares for growing crops and fruit trees. So the selection process was quite difficult because of course the local chiefs, they want to put all their family members to give farms to their family members. So we said they can suggest farmers, and they had to match certain criteria, as for example willingness to adopt sustainable farming techniques and the ability to integrate into the project's community structure. So only people were chosen who fulfilled those 2 and a lot more criteria. And the Hans Seidel Foundation had a veto right if they were thinking that a person was not the right person for the project. So once the 260 farmers were chosen, we separated them into 4 associations, because we learned from Mampu, where we only put in place the UFAM, one organization, that there needs to be a control between the different organizations. And those organizations actually have the land title, so not a single farmer owns land, but it's the association that prevents people from selling their land. And yes, so this is again the site. Here is one association, second, third, and fourth, and our bureau I think was somewhere here from the Hans Seidel Foundation. We put in place a democratic system. I'm feared that I'm running out of time, but in fact we had elections every 2 years, and each association has a board composed of 8 members with 7 key roles. So you had someone, we distributed the different tasks to 8 different roles. We had a president, a secretary, a treasurer, water manager, because we put in place the boreholes are connected to an underground water supply system, and then you have like those bonnes fontaines in French, like those wells or where you can take water out, and the water is paid. Why? Because once the Hans Seidel Foundation withdraws from the project, the farmers, they need to maintain the water supply system. So everyone who wants to get water from those wells needs to recharge a chip, and there was one person in charge of that. Marketing manager who takes care to sell the products to the Kinshasa market, agricultural production manager, and a solidarity officer if there were tensions or problems within the communities. I will just jump right to the next slide. We also, yeah, I will do quick. So here you see the housing, the change of housing that we made, like in Mampu, which was very important to cover the basic needs to develop afterwards. Water supply, before the villagers had to go to the river to search water. Afterwards, there was a huge water supply system on all the 5,500 hectares. Here you see how NCO looked afterwards. I will not explain the agroforestry technique below, because I think we heard this morning already a lot about cyclic agroforestry. Yes. Here the concept of agroforestry again. I think we also heard enough about this today, that you can benefit without cutting the trees immediately. We said to our farmers, trust us, wait 7 years, then you will benefit from it. And in the meantime, you're going to grow crops or harvest fruits from the trees that we planted. This is our old project leader, who unfortunately died in 2019, but it was important for me because it's his success story. Here the NCO products, mainly manioc. Do I get another 2 minutes? Maize, sesame, and wansu, which is like a sort of bean. Kettles, pigs. Here acacia, 1 and 2 years. And just to give you a quick idea on the production, the whole site was producing per year 1,300 tons of cassava, 260 tons of legumes, and 130 tons of grains. Yeah, an impressive picture of the beginning at the end. Okay, thank you.
Just flip and see how much did we miss. Okay, I'm so sorry, Luca. I just need to be fair to everybody. I couldn't give you 2 minutes more. I'm just hoping that these slides, presentations will be available to you as we move on. Can I have the lights on? I can hardly see my papers. Okay, yes, we do have our next speaker, who is Mike, is it Mike? Michelo. Oh, Michelo. Sorry, Michelo Roit. All right, Michelo Roit is from Zambia. Let me quickly just tell you a bit about him. He's the CEO of Kapete Ecological Center in Zambia. He's a small-scale farmer residing in Chongwe, which is one of the districts in Zambia. and he epitomizes agro. There's so many terminology in this field that I'm just struggling to read them. Agroecological stewardship with a multifaceted role as a facilitator, a practitioner, and an implementer of agroecological practices. Royd champions sustainable farming methods, including water harvesting, soil fertility management, and natural pest control. He's passionate about teaching his community how to implement agroecological farming methods. Help me welcome him.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are all fine. We have eaten, isn't it? Okay, thank you very much. I think my presentation this afternoon is quite simple. You see, as a farmer, I'm more on the practical aspect other than theory. First of all, I bring it to your attention that, you know, as a community where I come from, especially in Chongwe, that is the eastern part of the country. As farmers, we are facing some challenges in terms of a high depression of micro and the macronutrients, also organic matter, also the microbial in the soil. So as a community, we decided to go, or actually to partner with nature, to ensure that all farming activities actually has to be done in harmony with nature. So I formed a group where we carried on a sensitization in terms of agroecological activities. So we are guided by 3 principles of agroecology. Number 1 is what you call soil fertility management, water harvest, biological pest control. You know, before I go into agroforest, you know, when you talk about agroforest, it means that you are relating yourself towards nature. So we thought of integrating all these activities, that is soil fertility management, rainwater harvest, and the biological pest control. Because we discovered that if we start planting some trees and the soils there, they are not fertile, water table is so bad, you find that your trees actually won't yield anything. So we thought of putting all these 3 principles together so that at least as we are fostering agroecological concept, it means that we stand a better chance of winning the battle. So first of all, where do you slide? Or this direction? Oh. Okay, maybe. Okay. First of all, we need to understand what is agroecology. So this definition it includes a lot of things there, where there's integration of trees, shrubs, crops, even animals in agriculture. You know, when you put all those together, it's a holistic approach. It means that that's what it defines agroecology. Under agroecology system, there is also what you call enhancing biodiversity. You know, when you talk about the forest as a natural habitat, you find that it has got a lot of components there, microbial benefit, all sorts of living organisms. So if it's done in good faith, you find that that will actually define agroecology. Number 2, there's a point of improving soil health. So this is a point whereby we decided actually to go into production of organic fertilizer to ensure that as we are setting up some nurseries, we have to ensure that our soils should be fertile. Our soil should be fertile. So as a group, we went into production of organic fertilizer so that we can use it for nurseries. We can also use it for other sustainable production of other crops so that we promote sustainability. There's also the issue of increasing yield. I think if you recall, even the previous presenters, we discovered that under agroforests, there's also the issue of even fruits. You know, as farmers, we need to live a healthy life. Because if we live a healthy life, it means that it will bring about resiliency within the community. So this is a reason why agroforestry has to be supported at all costs, because we are fighting for what you call diversity in terms of productivity. I think some of those things, I think that have been also been spoken by the previous speakers. Let me talk about the issue of mitigation. You know, we are doing all these activities amidst climate change. So when we go into agroecology, we have to work on a certain mechanism to see to it that as we are doing all these activities, the whole intention there is to combat climate change, also to cool the earth. How do you cool the earth? It means that there should be a level of diversity the way we are going to conduct agroecology. It shouldn't be just forestry, fruits, and so forth. I think we are able to see even the previous speakers the way they presented. I think let me just move to the next step. Common agroforestry plugins. I think those are some of the common agroecology plugins, such as silver pasture. You know, under that one, as we are plugging agroecology, we have to put ourselves, or you put three measures. Number one, as the Kapete Ecological Center, we sat as a community, we divided our areas, whereby there should be a part of what we call wood rods. There should be also a part where there will be fodder banks. There will be also a part where there will be a fertilizer tree. Those that will be meant for soil fertility. So you can see that when you talk about silver pasture, this is where now the issue of fodder banks becomes. We can talk about other plants like leucaena that are there. They are very good as a source of protein and calcium. They fall under what you call fodder banks there. We talk about silver arable farming. This is where we deliberately integrate other fertilizer tree like sesbania. You know, climate change is a natural phenomenon and it's everywhere. And you find that the whole sub-Sahara region is being affected. So what do we do in order to cool the earth? We have to ensure that in our fields, we integrate these fertilizer tree like sesbania, Falbidia, Obidia, so that at least you take advantage of their nutritional value, and you'll be able at least to do some kind of productivities under those trees. Number three, we talk about forest farming. You know, that one, it falls under what you call wood rods. You see, as farmers, whether we are talking about agroforest, the issue of deforestation actually will be there. So it's better you do your own deforestation, whereby if you deliberately try to create your own wood rods, it means that you'll be harvesting from your own area without tempering other external areas that belong to other people or belong to the states. So as farmers under my group, we decided to design the farms in such a way that we create what we call wood rods, where we'll be harvesting our poles for construction and other things. Then we talk about also riparian buffers. You know, of late, this time we are complaining, you say, no, the rivers, the water level, they have gone down. But in the past, we could find that along the rivers, there was a lot of trees. Those were actually helping to reduce the rate of evaporation. Those were actually helping to bring down the cooling effect within the system. So if you go around those rivers, you are no longer finding those trees. So this issue actually has to be restated again. We need to put back the what you call riparian buffers. This can supposed to be done even in boundaries within our areas. Oh, sorry. Okay. Then we talk about also the benefit. Those are the benefit. Carbon sequences. I think this thing, it has been spoken quite a lot. You know, the trees are being depleted. So that's why as an organization, we are trying to ensure that we put back the trees so that that carbon exchange sequence actually it has to be supported at all costs. The same applies the carbon storage, whatever. It's the same thing. It has been spoken. I shouldn't waste much of the time. We talk about weather regulations. You know, the trees. That's why there's also what we say, each and every leaf, it actually play a pivotal role in terms of regulating the temperature. Now, because this time the trees are depleted, you find that the temperatures actually have gone high. We are complaining weather is not all that good, so we need to plant a lot of trees so that the temperature actually can be regulated. 10 minutes, okay. I think let me just, as a matter of time, let me go to the next slide. Yeah, so you can see some demonstrations there. You know, as a farmer, according to my group and organization, we believe in what we call hands-on. So, you know, some of the people that you see here, they are not educated. So what we do, we came up with the issue of organic fertilizer. And one of the major ingredients there, according to that organic fertilizer, is tree leaves. Without tree leaves, I don't think you can come up with the effective way of organic fertilizer production. The reason is simple. When you look at the characteristics of the tree, you find that some trees, they have got taproots whereby they can be able to access nutrients. They are able to go beyond a certain zone where it can tap up with the nutrients and it brings up so that it can feed the leaves and so forth. And once it comes back in the soil, you find that there will be that secretion of nutrients and so forth. So that is a community that I'm working with. So we decided that is to come up with a sustainable way of producing fertilizer so that we improve our soil fertility. And those of you who are involved in maybe planting some fruit and so forth, if you just use ordinary soil, you find that that will retard the growth rate. So if you put organic fertilizer in that arrangement, which is more sustainable, you find that the growth rate actually will be supported at all cost. And number two, because of this issue of agroforestry, we are trying to make sure that at least we improve in terms of water retention. We also improve in terms of carbon sequence in the soil. By so doing, this thing finally, they will be biodigested in the soil, and then the nutrients will be released. So it brings more benefit actually to the farmers at a community level. So that is the community of Mukonka village. They are making organic fertilizer, using tree leaves. I was the one who was facilitating that one. Then there's also the other point there. You can see that because of intensive heat that we are receiving, I conducted a research whereby I decided to grow certain crops under the trees. And those trees are those trees that are porous. You can see underneath there's a high density in terms of biomass, tree leaves there. So according to my evaluation, I discovered that it actually performed well. But when you talk about in the past, when the weather pattern was quite favorable, if you decide to grow some vegetables under the tree, they could not perform. Now, because of climate change, you see the results there. So according to the group, we discovered that, I think because of this weather, make sure that let's start now growing certain vegetables under the tree so that once they shed off the leaves, it will help us to create biomass. Here, there's another trial. You can see here, there are some people, this is from Zambia, I think they came to my place. This is what we call mandala bed. It's a water harvest technique. At the center here, there's what we call a square. At the central place, this is where you pour water, and the water there at a later stage will diffuse in a different direction. Because of high density of biomass within the area, and it's under the tree, you find that the vegetables there, they grow very well. I think 3 days ago, I received a call from my wife. He said, he generated quite a good cash out of this. So you can see this is a sustainable way of growing vegetables under the tree. And apart from that, you don't need to water everywhere. You just have to water at a central part, then water, it diffuses. And you have to ensure that that soil within that area, it has got a high density of biomass so that it easily absorbs more water. Then the other side, that tree that you see there, we call it Lucina. Other people, they call it Lucina. That tree is also a fodder, is in the family of fodder bank. And apart from that, it has got a high content of calcium. It has got high content of calcium and proteins. So apart from being a forage, we are trying to conduct a research to find out, since it has got a high content of calcium and protein, if we decided to grow some vegetables within that area, what could be the behavior? So we discovered that according to our conclusion as a group, the crops performed very well. And you can see there's a diversity there, different arrangement, and you see the biomass there. There's a high density of biomass. Then the far end there, you can see that there's a group of people, others that are in work suit. Those are the people from the ministry, and those who are in plain clothes is a community. So you can see that as I'm doing some project, I collaborate with the ministry because we can't run away from the government, it's a stakeholder. So the purpose of setting up that nursery is to ensure that at a later stage, we need to share those plans to the community. Because as we are promoting agroecology, we need to practice what we call hands-on. Make sure that people, the community, they have to do it themselves, other than just theory. We need to be more on a practical aspect. So that is what happened with the... Then there's this side. You can see high density of leaves. There's this what we call, the moment you set up what we call wood rods, at a later stage, during October or so, you find that within the wood rods, there will be high density of tree leaves. So there's what we call a biotransfer. From the wood rods, we are able to transfer the biomass. We bring it to a certain point where we regenerate into other products like biofertilizer and so forth. So that one is my fourth son, he's in grade 10. You see, he took advantage of the biomass somewhere. He has gone into production of organic fertilizer. You can see now he is busy. He wants to go into agroecology as well because he believes agroecology is more sustainable. Then the other part there, you can see myself there. I'm there facilitating the community. Now, there's no shade being provided there. What is there is just trees, isn't it? So this is what we are saying. Under agroecology, if you can have a lot of trees within our area, we don't need to improvise certain structures and so forth. You can conduct some meetings under the shade. And apart from that, it's also very important once in a while, you call the community, you sit so that you orient them on these other issues of climate change. Because climate change is here to stay. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was a surprise. I was actually timing Michelo I was like saying, oh my goodness, we're going to be running out of time. But surprise, surprise, he gave me 2 minutes, so, which is good. So our last presenter on case studies is our own case study in Namibia, which is in Okakarara. We're going to be hearing from Hewik. Is that correct? Hewik? Okay, quickly about Hewik Ripura, agroecological practitioner and garden manager. I think at Steps for Children is probably the name of the project here in Namibia. He's a young Namibian agroecological practitioner who strives to be a catalyst for change towards sustainable food systems that accommodate environmental restoration. He's a student at NUTS, and he graduated with a Bachelor of Agriculture and a partially completed honors degree in agribusiness management at the same institution. He is versatile and grounded in animal and crop management practices, coupled with a considerable agro-financial and economical base. He's a product of conventional production system, and this allows him to know what not to do as far as regenerative agriculture is concerned. Above all, he values the experience and knowledge of others. Help me welcome Mr. Hewik Ripura. You know how to use this? Okay.
Side to side.
Yeah, and you're just pointing it on the direction. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the mic. Can it go up a bit? Okay, thank you. I would like to start off by thanking the Hans Nydel Foundation, the Namibia Nature Foundation, Capricorn Foundation, and all of you sitting here for getting me out of the garden finally. I would like to start off with firstly just outlining who is Steps for Children. It is a German NGO founded by Michael Hoppe 15 years ago. It is an early childhood development project, and shortly after the establishment of the early childhood development project, they also established an orchard there, an olive orchard, and a horticultural establishment also, and that was just as an income generating wing of the main project. So let's get into it. Syntropic agroforestry, our journey to abundance. Just for context, where's the laser? Oh, sure. Oh, this side. No, for the laser. I was saying. No, but it's. Yeah. So we have a greenhouse on the far east, and then this is the first block, the second block, and the third block. Since the conversion to regenerative agriculture, we started in the first and second block, and block C was just left like that. So you can see the difference in growth, and we will come back to that. I will clarify more. So our vision is to enable and facilitate a transformation towards a high biodiverse and ecologically functioning garden with a nutrient-dense base and a strong community engagement, evident from all the people that you see there that we are engaging in a garden. This is our own kindergarten group that is in the garden harvesting green peppers and chilies. These are learners from the local secondary school as part of their social entrepreneurship coursework at the school that are also coming to the garden. These are GIZ trainees that we got last year, and here we are taking them through our compost making process. So I gave a little bit of background information already. So when the orchard was established, it was close to 2,000 olive trees that were planted, but due to lack of technical expertise locally and also just mismanagement of basic crop husbandry activities like irrigation and pest and disease control, the orchard was not very successful and never produced anything. Coupled to that, I mentioned that we had also established a horticulture production, separate, conventional also, separate from the orchard. But 3 years ago, the project managers, Ms. Sonia Snyder-Waterberg, got inspired towards more regenerative agricultural practices, because she realized that what they were doing at the moment was not going to be sustainable in the long run. So she went out and looked for consultants and in the know-how people regarding this whole regenerative, organic, sustainable production systems. And she met Ms. Vipka Volkman, who led, amongst her many capacities, a holistic management expert, and in my opinion, a custodian of Mother Earth. And she led the transformation of the garden from a conventional garden to the vegetable and olive plantation that we now have and enjoy. So given that, coming back to this first picture, when she transformed, when she took the horticulture production into the 3 lines of the old orchard, she only started with these 2 blocks. This last block was not included. We only started with it this year. So these trees were all under the same management in the past, but you can see these 2 blocks are much, much bigger than there. So it goes to show the whole benefits that you can get from diversity. So what we do in context, we grow trees, vegetables, herbs, and shrubs in an agroforest alley system. And here we strive to create an environment where optimal plant processes can take place. This is anything from germination, photosynthesis, transpiration, respiration, flowering. And we do that by trying to positively control environmental factors that affect these plant processes. That's the light, water, temperature, humidity, and wind. And how do we get to control these environmental factors that affect plant processes? We try to enhance ecological functions and services to foster a resilient and self-sustaining ecosystem in the garden and the surrounding environment through mimicry of natural processes. And so we are trying to enhance our water cycles, our nutrient and mineral cycles. We are trying to build soil and soil organic matter, reproduction, carbon sequestration, and we achieve all this through having and allowing high biodiversity in plant, animal, and microbial species. Through chop and drop, through mulching, building soil microorganism populations, through having conducive soil environments, minimum tillage. I mean, the soil is the home to soil life. And if you come in with a plow every now and then, you disturb the home and they have to restart rebuilding again. So we try to minimize that as much as we can. And also through soil microbial inoculations via compost applications. Our compost is also inoculated. And through other concoctions that we make on site, like lab serums that we make ourselves, spice teas that we also make ourselves at the garden, liquid fertilizers, liquid leaf fertilizers that we also make ourselves that are also inoculated with microbial life, and once applied to the soil, they get to work. So some of our practices, introducing different tree, shrub, vegetable, grain, and herb species in the garden. This is all for diversity. Minimum tillage, as mentioned before. Crop rotation, companion planting, intercropping, cover cropping, mulching, composting, green manuring, liquid leaf fertilizer production. We have something we call a malindi tea, which is just a protein hydrolysis that we make from crickets that we get during the rainy season. As mentioned before, the lab and spice tea production, various pest repellents, and rearing of pigs that we take through a pig tractor through the garden. that we also feed with garden residue. We also put in bedding in the pig tractor, and we fill it up every time it gets saturated. And once it's full, we use that for composting also. Conclusions. So, sorry. Ms. Philippus mentioned that we have less than 10% forested area in Namibia. And as such, and Dr. Wanga also mentioned that carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions are not reducing anytime soon. So, yeah, thank you very much. Greenhouse gases are not going to reduce anytime soon. So it is clear that we as farmers will have to do this job of sequestering carbon through our initiatives like establishing agroforests and managing them. So at Steps for Children, vegetable and olive plantation, in the back of our heads, when all is said and done, we want ecological restorations in our garden. We want the garden to be self-regulatory. We want to employ ecological workers, that is now our plants, so that they have the skill set to do what we cannot do. They will break compaction layers, they will build soil structure, release hormones and biochemicals that will stimulate soil microbial life and also positively impact the growth of their neighboring plants. And eventually they will feed the system that feeds them, and that is sustainability. The aim is to be process-based and not input-based. And hopefully through going through this whole process, we will achieve self-sustainability. Mother Nature yearns to have her world back in her hands again, so let's give it back to her. Let's be enablers of positive change and not agents of destruction. Just a few, if you notice here, we have different plant species here. So coupled with the existing olive trees, in the tree lines we have put in various other tree species, fruit-producing trees, almonds, peaches, apricots, figs, and yeah, I think for now that is what we have. And then we have other nitrogen-fixing trees also, Fidebia albida. In the tree lines we have Sesbania sesban, Leucaena, we have Tephrosia, Desmodium, all put into the tree lines. And when you look here, we have between the beds, we have mulched there just to reduce the evaporation and also just to feed the soil microbes. When we did this mulching, within 2 weeks it was almost gone. We couldn't see it barely. The termites and the soil life had taken it up. There was just small bits and pieces of them left on the ground. So.
Thank you so much for that Okakarara case study. Right now, we're going to go into a panel discussion, and I would like to ask Dr. Clemens to come up. And I just want to give completely over to you to call your panelists, introduce them, and tell us what to expect in this panel discussion. All what I can do for you is probably just to keep time. Will you want me to do that? Okay, then come and take the podium.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Are we still awake? Okay. I think as an energizer, we all get up quickly and we stretch our arms and legs just into the air so we are awake for the next session. Show me your hands. I want to see your hands. Are we all there? Very good. Now we turn one time around ourselves. And now you may be seated again. Thank you very much. Put your hands together for yourselves. Are we energized for the next session? Fantastic, fantastic. So, I'm sure you all have read the program, haven't you? So, now we will have some testimonials on agroforestry practitioners. And the idea is that we get examples from various places around the world. And in this case, indeed, I mean global, because we have also an example from Bolivia. We have one colleague from Belgium. And we also obviously have our continent Africa well represented here on stage. So, having said that, I would like to now invite my panelists to come on stage, starting with Professor Dr. Kalulu Tamba. He is from the Mbankana Center of Integrated Development from the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. Secondly, I would like to ask Mr. Marte Padinant, lead farmer from the Namibia Nature Foundation, NNF, Namibia. Please come on stage. Now, next person on stage, and I would particularly ask you to put your hands together for her, because she had probably one of the longest trips to come here, is Ms. Carla Cordero from the Fundación Jubileo from Bolivia. Then we have another local friend and colleague, Mr. Hanyulul from Aiva Forest Farm in northern Namibia from the Kavango region. Put your hands together. And last but not least, from my former place of work in Brussels, Belgium, hails Mr. Patrick Worms from the Center for International Forestry Research and World Agroforestry and International Union of Agroforestry. Patrick, please come on stage. So my role here in this is actually relatively limited, because now for the first part, each and every panelist will actually have an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes and 5 minutes only, to do a quick introduction and a short statement from their perspective. And I would like to, in that order, as I introduce the panel to you, I would like to now ask Professor Taba to actually start. Thank you. And obviously, as panelists, you're either welcome to do that seated or here on.
Welcome here.
Okay, fantastic.
As a teacher, I prefer to stand. Thank you very much. My work will be shortened because Luca will talk more about what we are doing. Can I have the, okay. I have 5 minutes, I have to go very fast. Okay. This is the area we are working. Look at show you. We are working in Plateau de Bateke. Okay. So anyway, we are working in Plateau de Bateke. We are there. Mbankana also is that area. And then we are working in province of Kwango. So we work in two areas, two provinces, Kinshasa and Kwango. As you know, they have talked about agroforestry. I will not go to talk more about it. But one thing very important is that we are working with acacia. We are working with acacia, acacia, and then we use as the crops cassava mostly. As you know that the system will contribute to soil fertility and restoration. We use mostly acacia, auriculiformis, and mangium. Why? Because you can harvest acacia after 8 years. It's a nitrogen-fixing trees. And also, acacia gives very nice charcoal. You will know why. And here the area we work is the savanna. As you see, the type of land we start with. The two types of savanna there. Here down you have forest gallery. So the area has mostly savanna, and they have along the river you have forest gallery, which is natural forest. You have natural forest here, and here degraded natural forest. The methodology we do, as I told you, we harvest acacia after 8 years, and then we produce charcoal with the trees. And automatically, the acacia regenerates. And then when they regenerate, the soil fertile, we can cultivate cassava, corn, or niebe, which is Vigna angulacus in Latin. And then, after 3 months, you remove corn. After 1 year, you remove manioc, less acacia growth. This is the type of, we show Lucas shows this picture. This is the forest you get. You had savanna, now you have this type of forest of acacia. It becomes a big forest. Now, in terms of carbon and nitrogen, what you get? Carbon is sequestered either captured by the soil and by the biomass. And you get around 50.3 tons of carbon per hectare above ground. And you get 123 to 268 tons of carbon underground up to 120 centimeters. And nitrogen become available 1.25 tons by hectare. This is what have analyzed under acacia plantation. So after 8 years, you get so many changes. In terms of SDG, what it is, you get agriculture high productivity. Yes, because cassava doubles the production from 10 to 20 tons. Corn from 1 ton in savanna, in acacia plantation to 3 tons. Environment protected. You capture carbon, you protect natural forest, and you increase biodiversity. You reduce poverty because you produce more, and you have energy too. You create unemployment. We have current problem in Kadim. The most one have now, we have trouble, political trouble. Most farmers have left for some time. We hope to go, that they will come back. We did not predict this problem. In conclusion, when you use agroforestry with nitrogen fixing tree, you reduce deforestation and forest degradation. You restore degraded land. You increase net primary production, trees and crop, and you increase food supply and reduce hunger. So we have experience for more than 20 years. We've been doing this many places. We've been asked to do the agroforestry in some of the provinces, like in Bakongo, where the oil company had problem people. We have, until now, we're doing agroforestry, and people are very happy with that. And the area we are working, then people come in, they don't run away. We get more immigration in land where Kadim intervened. So it's very nice project, in very nice processes. If you can do more agroforestry, we can get, I think, change very much our way and our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was very much, I found that very enlightening also with regards to the carbon actually stored above and below ground. And obviously, you know, to have that multifaceted approach and holistic approach in tackling hunger, climate change, and so on. I think that's one of the beauties about agroforestry. Wouldn't you agree? Well, now, moving on to our next speaker, that would be Mr. Martin Ferdinand, the lead farmer from Namibia Nature Foundation. Please, over to you. Do you have a presentation as well? Yes, okay.
Thank you very much again for the opportunity given. I think I don't have much to say. Everything I've said it already. Just here to give a testimony of what I've done. As we know that there's I had to get a job opportunity in Namibia, so I created my job with myself. So since I finished my school, I did not work anywhere, but I'm working with the soil. So it's where NNF joined me 2021. When they found me, I was already in the process. So by now, the skill that I've required, I'm using it as a facilitator in the Quando Conserves. So I don't beg. I put bread on the table. My kids, they eat. My family, they eat. I don't complain. I'm fed because of the knowledge that I required. So I just want to encourage you that let's stop complaining about I don't have a job. We are given job. Let's just use our hands. The soil is there. Then let's get what we have. I thank you.
Short and sweet indeed, but we like short and sweet, don't we? So, moving on to our next speaker, Carla Cordero, please take the stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carla Cordero. I work in Fundación Jubilee in Bolivia. It's an honor to be here and to share with you some reflection on my country, Bolivia. I consider that we share similar challenges regarding the preservation of our biodiversity and the pursuit of sustainable development models. Bolivia, located in the heart of South America, is a country of geographic and cultural contrast. We have a natural diversity with several ecological zones, from the high Andes mountains to the tropical lowlands of the Amazon. This natural wealth makes Bolivia one of the most biodiverse countries in South America with a diverse ecosystem. But Bolivia has followed an extractivist development model based on exploitation of minerals, oil, gas, and other natural resources. We have deforestation, biodiversity loss, water and air pollution, and ecosystem degradations. Furthermore, these environmental impacts are closely linked in social effects, such as the displacement of indigenous and rural communities and increased vulnerability to climate change. In this sense, the challenge is to seek a sustainable and respectful of the ecosystems that sustain the model. Fundación Jubileo works to promote fair and sustainable development in rural areas of Bolivia. We collaborate with local communities to create policies that address social inequality and environmental issues. We support productive projects in La Paz, Tarija, and the Amazon, boosting local economies while caring for the environment. We have also created 6 public policy proposals discussed in workshops with the community, and we do socioeconomic and productive diagnosis in each region. We believe that agroforestry is key to helping farmers adapt to climate change and improve their lives. For an example, in Achocalla, it's a small municipality. We support local farmers by promoting agroecological practices and obtain eco-certifications for their products. In the municipality in Uriondo, in Tarija, we work with agroecological tourism as a way to integrate sustainable agriculture practice with local economic growth. And in the Amazon, in River Alta, we work with local communities with their productive capacities and link them to larger market. We have promoted the creation of producer associations in different regions, helping small farmers share resources, improve productivity, and access better market. This cooperative model is essential for successful ecology projects. Working together is important in agroforestry, as it encourages collaboration. I was listening to you, And I believe that we have similar problems in Africa and the other sides in South America. And we have to work together to build better lives for our communities. Thank you.
I could not agree more. Thank you very much again, Carla, for your intervention. And again, thank you also for making the long way across the pond to join us here in Namibia. And I think there is lots to be learned, but we will dive into that a little bit more now as we engage in the panel discussion. Now, moving on, Hanyo, the stage is yours. Do you have a presentation? Do you want to come this side, or you will stay on that? Okay, good. So please put your hands together for Hanyo.
So, wow, our first agroforestry conference in Namibia. It's quite the milestone, and I'm quite impressed by all the interesting change makers and people that we've present here today. So thank you all for coming. Usually my audience isn't this diversified. Usually I talk to cattle and cows and banana trees. So Ewa Forest Farm is situated in Kavango West. We are just 20 kilometers in front of Nkuru, and we are right on the river. This is pretty much the shortest way from Windhoek to the Kavango River that you can reach. For those that are new to Namibia or don't know the north, this is kind of what it looks like, right? Lots of water, big trees, nice soil, and people that are very much prone to agriculture because of all the subsistence farming. At the same time, this is now a picture from the 1980s that I kind of bad quality swiped off of Google Earth, and this is today. So at the same time, we have huge deforestation, we have desertification, soil depletion, and you can kind of see that the current farming practices are really depleting the area as a whole. It's just, this used to be all forest one generation ago. So the conditions are perfect for agroforestry. And that's why I moved up there. So just about 2 years ago, we knocked on a lot of doors in Windhoek for funding, which didn't really work out too well for us. So we packed a tent and we packed our things and we moved to the bush and we started our farm. We had a bit of a dream to bring this agroforestry to Namibia. At that point, I was not aware at all that there was already all kinds of examples going on. So I'm actually quite impressed today also to hear all of these things. As you know, as farmers, we like to stay on the farm and just talk to plants all the time. So, because we didn't have any funding, our last 2 years were quite challenging. So we found a 25-year-old ruin on the farm. We built that into our living quarters. We washed in the river for the first 6 months and had crocodiles as our bathing buddies. Yeah, turned out well. I'm in one piece. So it was a challenging time, to be honest, but we have come over the mountain, we have our funding secured, and we have done a lot of development since then. So the first thing that we did is create drinkable water through a borehole and do it for us as well as the community. So that way already we opened up our farm gates to everyone that was surrounding there, because Kavango West is quite densely populated. It's not quite like the Namibia here. There's people everywhere, pretty much, which is also really good for us because agroforestry takes a lot of labor, and there's a lot of young, eager people that want to learn. So that's why we found this is the perfect place actually for us to start up. We've set up a nursery with a 15,000 tree capacity, because one of the big problems in Namibia is planting material. There's maybe 3 or 4 nurseries in Windhoek, and then there's a couple along the way, and fruit trees cost $400, and no one can afford them, and you all know the story. It's very, we import all of our trees out of South Africa. So this is what our nursery looks like from above. And in the meantime now, due to some generous donations, we were even able to set up a harvest shed and a strong solar power unit. So we can power the farm for the next 20 years, hopefully, and the training center, which I'll come to now. So In the meantime, while we were waiting for our solar power and everything, because by the way, in August we had our 2-year anniversary, and that's the same day we switched on our first light bulb. So that was a champagne moment for us. Having no Wi-Fi, internet, or place to charge your phone can really slow down your development. Anyway, this is our first example agroforestry sites. It's quite small because what we wanted to do is create a site that every homestead can plant. So the one you see on the left here didn't all fit in one picture, but it's about 4 lanes like this. And it's about what someone, a homestead, could water with their dishwashing water and their gray water, so to say. Oh, almost 1 minute. Okay, need to hurry up. And then here on the right side, you see right on the river our vegetable agroforestry plot, which we planted under existing trees. No fertilizer, no pesticides, none of that stuff. It's all organic and it worked beautifully. We harvested 20,000 heads of broccoli and cauliflower. Turns out no one really knows up there what a cauliflower is. So we had some learnings to do. But anyways, it's been a bit of a rocky road. Now to come to the training center that we want to build. On the left side, you see our current plan. It's been overworked since then, since I made this presentation. But basically what we want to do is we want to make templates, planting templates available to people. We want to take in eager people that want to learn agroforestry and give them the tools to succeed on their own, because no one has the time and money to go through a whole 2-year journey of building a farm. The thing needs to work from day one. And the people that are interested in this subject and that want to farm, they should be able to receive the training here locally and not fly across the world somewhere. So that is kind of what we're doing, and hopefully this is what it will look like in a few years. We've had some challenges bringing in trees from South Africa. It took us almost 6 months, but they're right now here at our house in Windhoek. There's about 1,000 fruit trees standing there, which I'm driving up north tomorrow morning, and we'll be planting our first 2 hectares this October. So from 2025, thank you. From 2025, you are very welcome to visit. We'll be open to the public, and there you can kind of see the first 2 hectares we want to be planting and how we will expand. This is us training the local community, which were very welcoming to us, and they then will become the trainers of the future students. So I'm short on time, aren't I? So we are not quite alone in this. We are supported by APN, which is Agroforestry Promotion Network. It's been founded by our mentor, Roland Frutig, who is a Swiss agroforestry expert with 15 years experience in India. And this, for example, is a picture of Mitongwe Woodland Reserve in Malawi, where I did my agroforestry training. We also work closely together with the University of Jodhpur in India, for example, who have a dryland crop development project where they're developing seeds for hotter climates that can still withstand frost, which is exactly what we need in Namibia. So there's things planned for the future. This is some of the projects in the Agroforestry Promotion Network. This one is in Nigeria, for example, and this is about a 2.5-year difference. This is the type of thing we will try to implement. There's no promises here. We are learning as we go. We are beginners. I come from a cattle farming family. I've never seen a banana tree before I left the country. So we're getting there, bit by bit, trial and error. This is the system, similar system that we will be planting now in October, which is syntropic agroforestry, highly productive banana, papaya, citrus. Okay, just another example. This is our website for anyone that wants more information. Everything is on there because not much fits in these 5 minutes. But yes, thank you so much, and we look forward to receiving you.
Thank you very much, first of all, dear panel, for putting things very concise in 5 minutes. I know that's always a challenge. We have one more speaker, Patrick Worms. He will have a presentation later on, a longer one, but for the time being, he will stay seated and will address you now with his short introduction. Please.
Thank you. So I'm not a farmer, Hanyo, sorry. I'm a guy who talks about farming and who tries to convince policymakers that farming needs to change. And that's given me the opportunity to look at agroforestry systems in over a dozen African countries, in the United States, in Australia, and in many European countries. I served 2 terms as president of the European Agroforestry Federation. So I'll give you some commonalities about what I've seen around the world to do with agroforestry. First, agroforestry is always exceptional farmers. Farmers like Hanyo and like Mate. Farmers who are doing something completely different from what everybody else is doing in the region and who are doing it against impossible odds. Living in a tent with a baby was probably not the easiest thing in the world. The second thing you notice is, oh sorry, I misunderstood that. The second commonality is every other farmer always has a great excuse about why they're not doing it. The best example I heard of that was in Uganda, where the one fantastic farmer in the Rwenzori Mountains who was doing a brilliant job while everybody else was poor and had shit land was simply accused of being a witch. That's why she was successful, not because she was a good farmer. Then, once you start with agroforestry, you discover that the world doesn't know what it is. Go to your banker in Europe. You can easily get 250,000 euros to buy a new tractor that is GPS controlled, has artificial intelligence, and gives you a massage. But go to the same banker to borrow 250,000 euros to plant some trees, and they have no idea how to deal with your problem. They have no models for it, they don't know how to deal with it, they don't know how to collateralize it, and they don't know how to insure it. And finally, you have regulatory barriers. In Europe, for example, for many years, you were penalized if you had trees on your fields. The satellite would measure the size of the crowns and would deduct the size of those crowns from the total area of your land for which you got your subsidies. Even worse, in some countries, if you had the temerity of planting more than 100 trees per hectare, your land got reclassified from agricultural land to forestry land and lost 3/4 of its value. So in those circumstances, it's hardly surprising that agroforestry has such great difficulty spreading. So what works best? Is it the top-down stuff when the president says, we shall all plant trees, as they did in Ethiopia? 1 billion trees planted in one day, survival rate 0.2%? No, that doesn't work. Is it bottom-up approach, the work that you guys are doing? Yes, it works at your local scale, but scaling it up to the level of a country, that doesn't work either. So what works is to take some principles on board. The first is that farmers need to get used, and the people who advise them need to get used, that agroforestry is about multiple income streams. We heard it from Bolivia, where tourism is so important. You also have that here in Namibia, where people come mostly to look at elephants rather than papaya trees. The second thing is that systems must make money right from the start. Telling a farmer to plant some phytoherbia because in 10 years' time you're going to have better production of your maize is not going to work. The farmer needs to understand why the labor he's putting into his agroforestry system today is going to start making money today. And here in Southern Africa, you have a perfect plan for that, Gliricidia sepium, which is something that can, if dealt with well, give you fertility benefits right from the start. The next thing is to have social diffusion. And social diffusion is a fancy word for saying walk together, talk together. It means having people visiting your farm. It means having these conferences. It means having farmers visiting one another and learning from one another rather than finding excuses about why the witch is doing better than anyone else. The next point is telling stories. I've been reasonably successful at changing agroforestry policies at the level of the European Union. You now find support for agroforestry in the Common Agricultural Policy, in the Forestry Policy, in the Biodiversity Policy, and in the Climate Policy. And you don't do that with reports. You don't do it with statistics. You don't do it with scientific papers. You have all those, and you leave them behind for the staff to deal with. But when you talk to the top guys, you tell stories. You tell stories that make them want to dream of a better world. You tell stories that make them believe that a better world is possible. And those would be the 4 lessons I would leave to you. So think right from the start on multiple income streams. Think right from the start at making money right from the start. Talk together in any ways you can. It's a scandal that you didn't know that there was so much agroforestry in Namibia before you started. Didn't you know how to use Google? I mean, honestly. And the last thing is learn how to tell a story that makes people want to dream, a story that makes people want to hope, a story that makes people believe that a better tomorrow is possible. Thank you.
Good news, we have Bank Windhoek here, so they actually learn and understand the whole issue about agroforestry a little better. So the next time they actually have a proposal on their desk, they will then say, yes, we need to consider that. And I think also now with our colleagues from government represented here, if there are some institutional or legislative barriers in the way, I'm sure we can tackle that as well. And the one thing I love about Namibia is the fact that as people we come together and find solutions. So let's hope for that as well. But for now, our focus should be for the next half of an hour is looking at examples we see around the world and looking at the conditions of Namibia. Namibia is an arid country, is a country which is like no other affected by climate change and will be even more affected in future. What can be done to make it happen? How can we ensure and how can we adapt best practice examples from agroforestry practitioners to the Namibian conditions? And I would like to start with our friend from South America and this one. Are there, now you have observed this morning's sessions and discussions and contributions. From your point of view, Carla, where do you think you have something to share with us, where Namibia can learn from you, can learn from Bolivia and some of the examples you've experienced in your home country? Over to you.
Well, we work to promote agroecological tourism, for example. And I think that Namibia can be promote agroecological tourism, and it's important to work together with local government, with international cooperation, with the community, and we have to work together. We have to believe that international cooperation and sharing knowledge are vital for implementing sustainable practices and improving life in rural areas. That is important for
Thank you very much. Now moving on to Prof. Taba, are there any lessons? I mean, we can see that DRC is a little bit further ahead in the whole discussion around agroforestry, and you have good experience, but of course you also have better soils. Similar to Kenya, also where people can live off only 1.5 hectares and can feed their entire families, unlike here in Namibia, where you will need at least a couple of dozens of hectares to get anything substantial from the land. So, but maybe there are lessons you would like to share with us from your point of view, especially for the arid production areas.
Yeah, from our experience on agroforestry, what I will, when I'm looking the land of Namibia, I think the first thing is to study the land, to know what tree can grow in the land, locally or from outside, because for example, our own case of Mampu, they made it for 10-year study, what type of tree could grow fast and give good charcoal. That's why they imported acacia. So here you need to study the type of soil, what type of tree can grow. There must be tree can grow in arid land. What type of tree can grow arid land, then you can have afforestation of that arid land before you think of agroforestry. This is my point of view.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I would like to actually invite all panelists, if you feel like, oh, somebody has said something on the panel now I would like to comment on or I would like to add on, please feel free to jump in at any given time. You all have mics now on your heads, so you can jump in and talk right away. So please don't stop yourselves to intervene and or to add on what somebody else has said. Now, talking to our two local colleagues now, and I open that floor to the question to the two of you at the same time. One of the examples also I've learned personally from Kenya is why were they so successful with agroforestry? Because they worked also as cooperatives. They actually joined many farmers joined together, worked together, learned from each other in that region, because also obviously the conditions are similar. So have you had any experiences on that one already? Do you have people around you who want to start the same? And what is your experience around that in collaborating with people around you?
So, shall I start? Or
Yeah,
you want?
I'll start. Yeah, actually, in my community, I've seen what's needed is just information sharing. We don't hide it that no, it's only me, to be too greedy that it's only me who want to eat bananas or want to plant this type of trees. But I've seen that I used to share the information, more especially in the schools, in the churches, in the conservancies. They are using me in the community, telling them the goodness of planting those trees. They not just talking verbal in the mouth, but they used to visit me, and they see that what I used to tell them is the real thing that I'm doing. So they used to see when we go in the traditional court, I talk to the indonors. Also, they must encourage so they must not just waste their times on drinking the whole day. So they must just keep themselves busy. So I think the most thing is information sharing and do the things on the ground. Then people, they will catch up. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
I think before we start about thinking about community farming, which is definitely the way to go in the future, because there's a lot of, especially around us, for example, now in Kavango West, there's a lot of interested people in farming in general. The thing, though, in Namibia is, at the moment still, because when it comes to agriculture, we are still quite a young nation. Everyone thinks about cattle farming. So the thing is, we need proof. Someone needs to deliver proof. They need to see a field that they can stand in the shade of the trees of, see the plants, touch the plants, eat the plants. And then it will create this cycle of people asking, okay, why is this banana so amazing and why is it not coming from South Africa? Can I maybe plant it on my empty field as well? Or why is that field across the fence green and lush in the driest time of the year, and over here it looks like a desert? And the moment you have this proof and people asking these questions is when I believe whole communities will come and will start this type of agriculture. Because the want is there, for sure.
Yeah, that every time we start a new project somewhere in the country, we bring that people to visit what we have done before. And usually they are convinced, and that we can go and start another project. Like the head of the petroleum company came to Mbankana, spent the night, visited Mampu, visited the other farm. Then he was convinced we can do the work, and he financed the work.
All that's right. It is crucially important to understand how various community members will engage with these issues. While you were speaking, I was thinking of examples I've seen in northern Ghana and in Burkina Faso, where shea trees are harvested by women, and the shea butter is turned into the cosmetics and the chocolate we all use. You all have shea products in your bathrooms or in your kitchens. The problem is that only women benefit from that particular industry, men do not. And so men who are not married to women who have involved in a shea cooperative, or men who don't have land, are desperate, and they will cut the trees down to make charcoal. And so the trees are beginning to disappear to make charcoal, which is of course a complete nonsense, because they could continue producing for 50 years. And the problem there has been that the community building efforts did not try to really encompass the entire community. If the community is only, not just the elites, but the top 80%, but leaves the bottom 20% out, that's where trouble will usually start in one way or another. So it's crucially important to have these conversations, and sometimes they take years, to ensure that everybody is involved before you start pumping valuable capital and valuable labor into modifying landscapes. We saw the example this morning from, I think it was Professor Zimmerman, if I'm not mistaken, where they'd done fantastic work on contour planting and water management, only for some guy from the municipality to say this is all rubbish and come through with a grader. That is an example of a mismanaged community environment, because those people should have been involved in the design, in the understanding of what was going on there, especially when they constitute such a major threat. A guy with a grader and the power to use it is a major threat if you are doing these kinds of projects. So that's the only thing I would add to the comment you made, Professor.
Put your hands together, don't be shy, indeed. Now, we've spoken about the community engagement, but now also obviously, and we touched upon that briefly earlier, is the question of how to bring it to a high level, to a national level. And obviously, Patrick, you are engaging on international level on that. But maybe again back to you, Carla, as well as Professor Taba. Both of you, what is your experience in engaging politicians and administrations at national level to make sure that actually agroforestry has its place among the conventional production system on land and land management?
As a Jubilee Foundation, we work in local public policy. But in Bolivia, the national government, well, we work to engage the national government. We are in constructor of the national strategy of agroecological. And we work together with many civil organizations and the farmers, but for construct this national strategy of agroecological. It's going to implement, I think, the next years.
Well, we look forward to learn more from you then when it's published, the strategy, and then hopefully also we get an English translation. We'll make sure that Google Translate or whatever helps us to do that, but I'm sure we'll then also share that again with you here in the audience as well, so we can learn again from each other. Professor.
Yes, as Lucas saw in his paper, every project is started in the plateau, the government was involved. It was not only Hans Stiftung. But we get local chiefs are involved, the central government involved. But something we did not predict is what has happened in the last 2 years. How come we could not, the community did not protect what they have? Why the whole thing has collapsed? I think that we have to involve maybe more the local community, get them involved, local politicians, people who are representing that area to the central government, because we cannot understand how trouble can be there and the central government or local government is unable to stop it. But I think that we will negotiate. I think pretty soon we are starting negotiating to find a solution with local politicians from those areas, and with central government and local chief. I think we can bring peace. And it's very important that the whole community gets involved, from bottom to up.
Fully agreed, fully agreed. Now coming back to our two local colleagues again, I'm sure you know you are in communal areas and you obviously have to work with the traditional authorities. And knowing from other examples, sometimes the chiefs or FUMOs and others sometimes can be a little bit difficult, and especially when you don't have tenure rights on the land where you're not protected essentially also in that sense. Sometimes traditional authorities can be troublesome. What are your experiences on that, and what measures have you taken to mitigate those risks working with the traditional authorities?
Yeah, I'll start by the journey of 1,000 kilometers starts from the zero. So it says that everything, it must come into cooperation. So if you don't cooperate, then nothing will happen. So the politician and the traditional courts, they must be involved in, because they play a very big part, more especially coming to the land issues. So if you don't involve them, then you can have the equipment, you can have everything you want to do. But if you are not engaged with them, once you go to them, then you won't get chances. They will refuse because they don't know you. So you have to keep yourself, intervene with them every now and then when they contact meetings. You should go there, then you give them awareness, you teach them that the importance of these things is that every now and then you must keep involving with them, so that whatsoever you want to do, you ask a piece of land, they'll give you. So, as the gentleman has said, starting from 0 up to, we should not leave anyone, this one is a child, this one, they just give the information to everyone so that they grow with that information. I think everything will work together.
Let me add one more question. I know from other examples now that sometimes traditional leaders can become, despite you have an agreement, you have everything in place and you agree on certain terms, that at some point the traditional leader decides to change those terms and becomes a little bit more greedy. Have you had any experiences excuse me, on that?
I understand the traditional leaders, how they come in, that I have my land, I have where I'm busy plowing right now. So I need a letter. I need a letter. So that letter should come to you start from the traditional courts where you go and ask that, apply that letter. So we always, whether you go to the government, you start with the traditional court, just from that. So the traditional court should not be put it aside. Everything that we do, they must be involved in.
Okay, just hold on a second, Hanyo, and then...
Yeah, we had, in terms of land ownership, we have 3 types of system. The first one, the one that applied in Mampu or Insio. They have a big piece of land, and then they put farmer there, and they try to give those farmers land ownership. The second one big guy have a big land, big agroforest, EB. He have a big system there, and he exploits himself. But the third one, which is applying now, we discuss with the local chief, and he gives you the land with his own people. So you work with the local people, with their chief, and you do agroforestry. This was done in Gungu, and now we are doing it in Bakongo. So there are 3 types, but the best one is the third one, where local chief and his people are involved in the project. Then you don't have any problem.
Yeah, so we also approach it from the community angle. So there's a chief for the whole region, but we have our local village, and together with the local community, we have a very good relationship. So we employ only locally at the moment. We supply the drinking water. We supply what we can't sell of our harvest, for example, to the community. So there's a very good relationship going on, and we're very transparent with what we're doing. So whenever the big boss rocks up and asks questions about the project, he only gets positive feedback, because that's our main aim, what we're doing. And we also try to include him in all our information. And to be fair with the constituency where we are, the traditional authority is quite well organized in terms of their own rules. They have a chancellor, and they have it all on paper. So should there be, for example, a king that's maybe a bit more difficult, I can always go to them, and they have everything in order. So it's not the wild jungle out there. The people are professional.
Carla, any experiences from your point of view in Bolivia, also with working with traditional structures and leaderships?
Bolivia has a similar problems. We have to. We need the local leadership permissions. But in Bolivia, like Africa, most than 70% of people work in agricultural areas and rural areas. And the local leadership are concerned for these necessities, and we don't have any problems.
Just one quick question to Hanyo. Have you actually shared some broccoli also with the chief?
Well, with the local chief, yes. I actually tried to advertise that vegetable, a bit unsuccessful. Turns out the leaves are very nutritious and delicious. So the leaves we sold to Angola, to everywhere. The heads themselves, we had a lot of frozen broccoli for a few months. So.
Okay, over to you, Patrick. You had something to add, I saw.
Well, the question you asked us to begin with is, how can we bring agroforestry to Namibia? And it struck me that all of these conversations have been only about one kind of agroforestry, what we call silvo-arable agroforestry, trees with crops. But you're in a dryland country, and the vast majority of these drylands are going to find it very, very difficult to grow anything without capital-intensive irrigation. And I strongly encourage everyone to consider the second big pillar of agroforestry, which are the silvopastoral systems, the grazing of animals on the trees. And here, it's not just a question of what can Namibia learn from places like Kenya or Botswana or Zambia that have done it well, but I think that Namibia also has something to teach these other countries on how to do it well. Because yes, you have the advantage of having a very low population density in a very large country, which means there's a lot of land on which you can make a lot of mistakes before it really starts hurting. But you also have the advantage of having a lot of people who've been doing this for a very long time. Beef farmers, wildlife farmers, game farmers. And what they are doing is trying to figure out how to get their land to grow more fodder, more forage. And you do that too by integrating trees into those landscapes. It's not just a question of doing the right grazing, it's also a question of integrating the right trees and understanding how the trees and the grasses interact. And so, Clemens, perhaps if you do this event again next year, I'd love to have a lot more sessions devoted to the silvopastoral systems that, whether we like it or not, are going to be the majority agroforestry systems in Namibia.
I'm sure the team, and well, I certainly take note and the team does as well, and we certainly will keep that in mind for future events. Thank you. Anu, you raised your hand.
I just wanted to answer to that. There's actually quite a few farmers in Namibia already working on this without them even realizing that it is agroforestry, and they don't even know that these two terms come together. But there's a lot of farmers thinking about how can I get more out of my grazing? How can I maybe move the cattle off the land in the rainy season, let the grasses grow out, and then move them back on? And all of these things also include the trees, of course. Our family ourselves, we have a cattle farm in the mountains here close to Windhoek, and once the training site up there is set up, we very much want to try and do something also there with this. And I would be also very happy to see more experienced people in that field to come to Namibia, or even from our own ranks maybe.
Okay, before we now open the floor for 5 minutes, and I will allow only a limited amount of questions, not lengthy statements, just to put that before you. Maybe all of you just want to give a short statement and 3 messages you would leave behind now for us here in the audience and the Namibian decision makers. And now we start from the left to right. Patrick, you go first.
Easy. Trees are the solution to everything.
Everything.
Everything. At least in the agricultural context, right? I'm not sure they can deal with the Ukraine-Russian war, but
who knows?
well, windbreaks.
Windbreaks
in Ukraine have actually been used by the Ukrainian armed forces to. Anyway, it's turned out that it has a military use, believe it or not. And we have the European Agroforestry Federation has members from over 25 European countries, including Ukraine, and the Ukrainian members have published papers on the military uses of agroforestry.
For me, I just want to encourage anyone that's interested in this field, to any Namibian out there, to really get involved into the topic, because this is right now of such interest and benefit to the world, to just go into this topic, dare to grow crops, plant trees, and just make something out of it, basically. And then the last thing I want to say is our big aim is to grow farmers. So anyone that is looking to do that in the future, please approach us.
I think that agroecological is the key of preserve our biodiversity, preserve our life, and preserve the social, environmental, and economic life in the rural areas. And we have to oppose for agroecological development in our countries.
I think we had the topic why we are here. The only way that I want to share, let's work together to achieve. I thank you.
I would like to say that it's not easy, but I think the future remains in agroforestry, not only for giving us food, but also for preserving the environment where we live. Thank you.
Now, let's open the floor, and I take 3 questions, if there are. So, can I see I see one hand over there, I see one hand over there, and a last one over there. We'll start from left to right.
Hi, my question is to Mr. Patrick. Actually, I'm from Tunisia, from North Africa, and I just wanted to comment to the last question. Is it true that, trees are the solution for everything? Because we've lived some cases in Tunisia where they brought some trees like eucalyptus from Australia, and they planted these trees, and they actually caused a big problem and big issue. They really damaged biodiversity. They are the source of fire. We know also that eucalyptus needs a lot of water, so it's also another issue. And I've heard it now, and I've heard Mr. Thomas, I think, he said that a tree is better than nothing. I think also I'm not agreeing a lot with it in all the cases, let's say. So I don't know what you guys have to say about this.
Absolutely right. I should have specified that it should be the right tree for the right purpose in the right place. And obviously eucalyptus is a major problem when you put it in the wrong place. So yes, right. Trees are the solution, but they can also be the problem.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to comment on that?
Yeah, maybe from a farmer's perspective, I can add about eucalyptus, because now a lot of people have this very bad image of eucalyptus, and it comes from monoculture eucalyptus plantations that completely deplete the water level and destroy all the crops around them. But we, for example, in our syntropic agroforestry now, we will plant eucalyptus. We're planting up to 1,000 eucalyptus per hectare, with the intention of eucalyptus being a water pump. So actually eucalyptus does get water and distribute it in the higher levels of the soil. The difference being you don't let it grow into a 30-meter tall tree, but you cut it out very, very early and use that fast-growing biomass in your soils. So it's actually a tool. So it's all about how we use these plants, and that's the knowledge that we need to share with each other so we can become more sufficient.
Anyo actually stole the words out of my mouth, but let me try to see if I can still get something out of there. When I started farming down in the southern part of Namibia, very hot and very dry, our dream was we will do these very neat rows of trees and of everything. But then nature just tells you it's not going to work. Then you also bring different species from all over, and you like, okay, this is what is being touted as good for this. You put it there, and then you realize quickly that it doesn't work. Then the few trees that survive, the birds come and perch on there. And then before long, there is a whole lot of volunteer species that are growing there. In the southern part of Namibia, we have a lot of prosopis, which is not indigenous to our area. And just like the eucalyptus, it is also demonized a whole lot because apparently it takes a whole lot of resources from everything else. But my experience on the farm has been anything but, like, it actually brings in a whole lot, and if you copy it whilst it's still young, you actually get a whole lot of benefit. So if you learn from nature and let nature take its course, you actually have a much better experience.
Well, that was less of a question, so we can move already over to the last question on the corner over here. Yes? Just trying.
Thanks for the opportunity. You know, what you just pointed to is this reflection, doing something, but then reflecting and taking the time. And I'm just asking you, who are more or less all involved in national big-scaled projects, how do we buy the time to first understand the complexity and learn to look? Because we are so focused on technical solutions to solve the urgent problems now. And then we make mistakes and we waste resources. How can we make also our foundations who have funded this opportunity realize that we need longer times and that we need process-oriented rather than results-oriented projects. That's my big question.
Well, if I had to answer that, well, by bringing everybody here into this room together to actually learn from each other and to learn from the mistakes others have made. But let me not preempt that. Back to the panel, please. Up to you.
I think we've got to realize that talking is super, super important. And talking takes time, and that costs money. And everybody has got to recognize that. In the same way that engineering projects typically budget and over complexity because not enough time has been devoted to understanding all of the complexity before the first. You have exactly the same problem with farming systems. And that's where the community-based approach is actually a precious lesson to us all. Because sometimes it can feel like you're really wasting your time. You've been talking about the issue for the last 3 or 4 years and nothing is happening yet. But you realize that by talking about the issue for 3 or 4 years, by getting their grandmother involved in those conversations, you are less likely to make a mistake when you finally start spending money. And if there's one lesson that I would leave for funders, donors, foundations, and governments is budget for time in your project development proposals. Do not expect people to come up with a brilliant out-of-the-box solution and all you have to do is press a button and the world will change. The world does not work that way. Business understands that. Business integrates these conversations, at least the successful ones, into the way that they operate. Business makes room and allowances for mistakes. Governments and projects have to do the same. If they don't do it, they'll still get the mistakes, but they will be worse mistakes and more expensive mistakes than they would get if they had spent the time to finance the talking.
Anybody else want to add to that now?
The only thing that I can add to that is, I guess, especially now in a country like this one that's quite new to agroforestry, I mean, most things have been said, but it is just the work of the pioneers. That's just what needs to be done. And it's in every new frontier, anywhere in business or in projects in the world, the first pioneers make a lot of mistakes. They're expensive, costly, and they take a lot of time. But I feel like with events like this one, we can speed up that process of failing and iterating much, much faster and come to the point of actually executing on a national level on, very quickly.
I allow 2 more questions. One is over there and one is over there. And then we really, unfortunately, need to close. For the remainder of the questions you may have, we have an extensive break now, so you can actually address all those questions and also bilaterally with the panel. Now, let's ask first, where is the mic? No. One mic over here, gentleman in blue. And then over here on that side again.
So great. I want to add my voice to the call for more conversations because there are often times where we think that we are talking too much. It is time to translate all the conversations to action. But I'll just tell us our one story. We're working with a member of parliament in Nigeria at the federal level, and you will be amazed. He tells us that whenever he wants to talk about issues of climate change and agriculture at the National Assembly, which is the national parliament, many of his colleagues will tell him, what the hell, what are you talking about? And so it's very important that we give more time to talking so that we can get as many people as possible, especially the decision makers, to key into this. That way the solutions are better are taken in and we all collectively work towards addressing the challenges.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's half of a question, more like an opinion that I would like to discuss. I think I'm working in the sector not for a very long time, but 2.5 years. And I think it's a political problem because funding is generally linked to election periods. So if we need 10 years to do a good project, how are we going to do that? Not a single government has a budget that runs over 10 years. So how do you see ways to solve that? Because you can have a green government for 5 years in some country, and then there is another party who joins the government who wants to do the opposite. So yeah, do you think there is any solution on a political scale?
Well, first I'd say objection, Your Honor. Governments always budget for giant projects that take many, many years to come to fruition. Think of nuclear power plants, think of high-speed railway lines, think of motorways, think of giant teaching hospitals. None of these things get built within one political legislature period. So governments know how to do that, but they know how to do that with abiotic things, with concrete, with steel, with glass, with electronics. What we've got to teach government is to take the same approach to biotic things, to biology, to forests, to rangelands, to seas, and to farmlands. And the way to do that is really by telling stories. You were giving that example from Nigeria, and I'm sure that part of the problem is that the vast majority of the members of parliament there, like everywhere else, will be lawyers or economists or business people or accountants. Anyway, people who are not used to being farmers or environmentalists. And that is a challenge, but it is also an opportunity, because you don't have to get into the details of why it works and why eucalyptus is good here and bad here. You just have to paint a story of how the landscape works better and how more money is to be made by the people living in that landscape when that landscape is managed well by mixing the trees, the crops, and the animals. And if you can paint that story in the mind of the policymakers, and the policymaker bites and becomes interested, then the machinery of state will begin to follow up and look at all of the details on how to make it happen. And of course, that's when another set of problems starts. But at least you begin to shift the supertanker of state attention towards these supremely important agricultural interventions.
Well, with that, I think we conclude this panel discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the panel. And Doufi, I'm going to take over. You can take over after the break. So what I will do now is actually also, and I would suggest we stick to the timeline as proposed. So the short break is going to be a little bit shorter. It's going to be now half an hour. So at 4:40, I would like to encourage you to be back in the room. Thank you very much. And, oh yes.